The Valley of Light. On the 29th of November, 1980, British police officer P.C. Alan Godfrey vanished while investigating a case of stray livestock on a rural farm. While on duty, he spotted a large, dome-shaped object hovering in the sky. Suddenly, a blinding beam of light shone on him, and when he regained consciousness, he found himself nearly 100 meters away from where he had been, with no memory of what had just happened. Roughly 25 minutes had disappeared, completely erased from his memory, as if those moments had never existed. When he returned home, Godfrey noticed red, burning welts on his feet, as though they had been scorched. Unable to explain what had happened, he began to suspect that he had been abducted by extraterrestrials. Determined to find answers, he sought out regression hypnosis expert Harry Harris. During their sessions, Godfrey recalled being blinded by a powerful light, then taken into a small room. There, he was subjected to a medical examination by small, unidentifiable beings, along with a bearded man. His story became legendary among UFO believers, but by the time he turned 70, Godfrey admitted to the Huddersfield Daily Examiner that he was no longer sure if he had actually been abducted. Perhaps, he wondered, it had all been just a dream. The singing statues. The two colossal statues, known as the Colossi of Memnon, are among the greatest mysteries of ancient Egypt. They are also called the singing statues, thanks to the strange phenomena that once occurred there. The statues stand tall on the banks of the Nile, near Luxor, within the Theban necropolis. Each statue is approximately 18 meters tall, erected in the 14th century BCE, during the reign of Pharaoh Amenhotep III, a king who ruled Egypt 3,400 years ago. Originally, they depicted the pharaoh seated on his throne, both hands resting on his knees, his gaze fixed on the river. For thousands of years, these statues guarded Amenhotep's mortuary temple, but today, only a few remnants of the temple remain, buried deep beneath the sands of time. The greatest mystery surrounding the Colossi of Memnon is their ability to sing. It sounds unbelievable, but since the time of ancient Greece and Rome, people have documented the statues emitting strange sounds at dawn, leaving visitors of the era both amazed and intrigued. The Greeks and Romans did not know the true origins of the statues and believed they represented Memnon, a hero in the legends of the Trojan War, rather than the Egyptian pharaoh. Memnon was once king of Ethiopia who fought on the side of Troy against the Greeks, only to be slain by Achilles. According to legend, Memnon was the son of Eos, the goddess of the dawn. After his death, Eos wept for her son each morning. The Greeks and Romans believed that Eos was crying over this land, her lament carried by the sounds that emanated from the statues. But if it was not the goddess, where did these sounds truly come from? In 27 BCE, a powerful earthquake caused the head of one statue to collapse and left deep cracks in the remaining structure. From that time onward, every sunrise, the statue began to sing, emitting sounds like whistling or mournful wails that echoed across the desert. Modern scientists explain that, at the first touch of sunlight, the rising temperature caused dewdrops trapped in the cracks to evaporate, creating the strange sounds that people once believed to be the singing of stone. The Headhunters of Nicaragua. At the archaeological site of El Ometepe in Nicaragua, researchers discovered a burial unlike any ever found before. Inside the grave were 2 pairs of legs and 3 human skulls, but the strange part was that none of the skulls belonged to either pair of legs. There were no torsos, no arms, only 2 pairs of legs lying parallel to each other, and 3 skulls carefully arranged. One of the pairs of legs was identified as belonging to a teenager. One skull was placed in a bowl at the feet, another shattered near the knees, and the third set atop the hips. According to excavation leader Jeffrey McCaffrey, this was one of the most complex burial styles ever unearthed in Nicaragua. There had been cases where a skull was placed in a jar buried with the deceased, but never before had 3 heads been arranged together in a single grave. Afterward, the team tried to locate the missing upper bodies of the remains, but found nothing at all. No one knows for whom this grave was made, or why they were buried in such a way. It could have been a child captured as a prisoner and executed, or perhaps a young warrior from a headhunting tribe, buried with the heads of enemies he had slain. But the hardest part is this. Nobody really knows who lived in Nicaragua before the arrival of the Spanish. When the Spanish invaded, they destroyed all native scripts, records, and culture, erasing an entire civilization from the history of humanity. The Pezar Cave Complex. In the Pezar region of India, a cluster of temples carved into solid rock has astonished researchers with its ancient and mysterious nature. There are around 8 ancient caves here, dedicated to the worship of Shiva, one of the 3 supreme gods in Hinduism, believed to hold the powers of creation and destruction over the universe. Yet, Shiva is not the only deity present at this site. Ancient stone carvings and bas-reliefs etched deep into the cave walls also depict other gods, some so ancient that their names and origins have been lost to time. Over the centuries, most of the temples have fallen into ruin, the stone walls crumbling day by day and becoming engulfed by wild plants. The area has become a haven for snakes, wild boars, monkeys, and sometimes even stray peacocks wandering beneath the ancient trees. What surprises most visitors to this temple complex is the seemingly endless number of Shiva lingams, simple stone icons shaped like thumbs, carved directly from the bedrock. These lingams not only represent Shiva, but also symbolize supreme energy, uniting both the material world and the spiritual realm. Across India, the lingam is a common feature in every Shiva temple, but in Pesar, the number is staggering. Thousands of lingams scattered everywhere, from the cave floors to broken altars. No one knows why there are so many, or what their true purpose was. Even the time of the temple's construction remains a mystery. Based on some traces, a few smaller shrines might have been built in the 16th century, but most of the complex still lies shrouded in the darkness of a much more distant past. The cave bear. Late last year, a group of reindeer herders discovered the first ever fully preserved skeleton of an adult cave bear. Previously, scientists had only found bones from young bears, but never an intact adult specimen preserved like this. The discovery, made on Bolshoy Lyakovsky Island in the frozen Yakutia region of Siberia, was immediately recognized as an event of global significance. This remarkable bear lived between 39,500 and 22,000 years ago, during the last ice age, an era shared by woolly mammoths, mastodons, and saber-toothed tigers. Not only its bones, but its soft tissues, organs, fur, and even its nose were miraculously preserved. The herders donated the bear's remains to a local university specializing in Ice Age animals. Coincidentally, around the same time, someone else reported the discovery of a preserved cave bear cub on the Russian mainland. While details have been scarce since these finds, researchers at the Northeastern Federal University in Yakutsk are working to extract DNA samples, examine its teeth, and even analyze the remnants of food in its stomach to learn about the diet of the species thousands of years ago. The cave bear was an ancient species or subspecies that once roamed across Eurasia, going extinct about 15,000 years ago, near the end of the Ice Age. Their last common ancestor with modern bears appeared between 1.2 and 1.4 million years ago. Weighing up to 700 kilograms, the cave bear was even larger than most bears living today. This adult bear is just one example among many ancient Ice Age animals being discovered in pristine condition as Siberia's permafrost continues to thaw in recent years. The ancient ruins of Ani. On a remote plateau in Armenia, where a raging river marks the border between Armenia and Turkey, the mysterious ruins of the city of Ani remain a whisper from the distant past. There isn't a single town nearby. The surrounding valleys and mountains are untouched and wild, making this one of the last true wildernesses left in the world. That untouched quality is exactly what makes the ruins of Ani so breathtaking. In winter, the ruins are blanketed in ice and snow, casting a dreamlike, medieval spell over the landscape. Amid the rubble, one can still see a massive cathedral, 6 smaller churches, most of them collapsed, and fields of shattered stone, the remnants of what once stood here. Ani once gleamed like a jewel of the Armenian kingdom in the 10th century, when it served as the capital and controlled one of the richest, busiest stretches of the Silk Road. But in 1319, the Mongol Empire swept through like a storm, destroying the city to its core. A devastating earthquake soon followed, plunging Ani deeper into ruin. The last few survivors were absorbed into the Ottoman Empire in 1579, and by 1735, Ani was completely abandoned. Ever since, these ruins have stood quietly amid nature, frozen in silence whenever winter returns. The Van Gogh mummy, a perfectly preserved mummy, whose appearance is strikingly similar to the famous portraits of Vincent van Gogh, was discovered inside an ancient church in Spain. This man had red hair, a beard, and distinctive facial features, but his true identity remains a mystery. He is just one among 30 mummies unearthed during the restoration of the Church of Our Lady of the Assumption in the small village of Quinto, near Zaragoza. These mummies were only discovered when the floor was lifted to install a new heating system, and no one expected to find mummies beneath the church. The bodies were placed in wooden coffins, 11 adults and 24 children. All were carefully wrapped in cloth and initially kept in the chapel for examination, but for some reason, they were forgotten and buried beneath the church's foundations. Scientists are still researching and have yet to learn everything about them. However, thanks to the region's unique arid soil, the mummies have remained nearly intact for more than 2 centuries. These individuals died at the end of the 18th century. At first, many assumed they were monks, but that turned out not to be the case. Monks were typically buried barefoot, while these mummies wore special shoes made of straw and cotton, the type of footwear worn by poor farmers. This only deepened the mystery of why they were laid to rest in such a sacred place. Most likely, they died during epidemics that ravaged the area in the 18th century, such as smallpox or yellow fever. The right hand of Saint John the Baptist. Saint John the Baptist lived in the 1st century and is considered a great prophet by many religions, including Christianity and Islam. For many early believers, he was even seen as the Messiah himself. But John was not only a prophet, he also baptized Jesus. According to the Gospels, John was sentenced to death and beheaded in the year 30 CE, under orders from the ruthless Roman king Herod. His body was buried in the city of Sebaste, which is now in the West Bank. Legend has it that when Luke, the Gospel writer, passed through Sebaste during his missionary work, he took the right hand of Saint John back to his homeland of Antioch, now part of Turkey, where the Holy Hand was said to perform miracles and even move on its own. Every year in September, during the Feast of the Exaltation of the Holy Cross, the hand would be displayed for the faithful to see. If the hand opened, it was considered a sign of a bountiful harvest. If it clenched shut, it meant a year of famine. After Antioch fell to Muslim forces, the relic was moved from place to place, finally reaching Constantinople in the year 956, where the tradition of displaying the hand continued. Today, fragments of this holy hand are believed to be kept in churches and cathedrals in Montenegro, Greece, and several other countries. However, the authenticity and the true location of the relic remain the subject of fierce debate among the faithful. The Aztec skull masks. The ancient Aztecs were notorious for having some of the most brutal rituals in human history, and their obsession with death is evident in 8 terrifying skull masks found inside the Templo Mayor in Mexico. These masks were made from real human skulls, giving them a haunting appearance beyond words. They were discovered alongside 30 decapitated skulls, leaving experts baffled as they tried to decipher the true purpose of these masks. Some suggest they were offerings to the gods, but their origins and true meaning remain a mystery. Even in the context of blood-soaked sacrifices, these skull masks stand out as particularly unusual. A team of biochemists and anthropologists recently joined forces for a new study to unlock the mystery. They found that the masks were crafted from the skulls of 2 different groups of people, and were made sometime between 1468 and 1481 during the reign of Emperor Ahuitzotl. All were the skulls of men between the ages of 30 and 45, in perfect health, with no signs of dental disease, a rare thing in those days. The skulls had certain bones removed, then were dyed and decorated with obsidian blades, seashells, and precious materials. The cut marks and drill holes match techniques seen in other artifacts from the Templo Mayor, suggesting that the men whose heads became masks were likely warriors, captured or killed in battle, then brought to Tenochtitlan for sacrifice and ritual processing. From this, researchers determined that only the most elite warriors, members of the nobility, were granted the honor of becoming skull masks. This fate was reserved for the most outstanding individuals, not just anyone. Did these warriors accept their fate as a mark of glory, or did they fear it up to their final moments? That is a question no one can answer. Mons Olympus. In October 2020, the red planet Mars drew closer to Earth than it had in 15 years. This rare event happened at the same time that Earth reached its farthest point from the Sun, while Mars approached its closest. The distance between the 2 planets was only about 55 million kilometers, close enough that Mars could be seen with the naked eye, a brilliant red dot in the night sky. With a simple telescope, observers could even make out features on the surface of Mars, including Mons Olympus, the largest volcano ever discovered in the entire solar system. While its summit is hard to spot, when Mars moves close to Earth, it's possible to see white clouds of carbon dioxide swirling around the volcano's gigantic crater. Sadly, that magical moment has passed, and we'll have to wait until the year 2035, 13 years later, for another chance to see Mons Olympus so close again. The story of Mons Olympus's discovery is fascinating in itself. In 1971, NASA's Mariner 9 probe was launched into orbit around Mars. But when it arrived, the entire planet was shrouded in a global dust storm, making photography nearly impossible. As scientists patiently waited for the dust to settle, the first thing they saw was a mountain peak poking through the thick clouds. Eventually, they confirmed it was Mons Olympus, a massive volcano twice the height of Mount Everest, with an area the size of the entire state of Arizona. It is a marvel on another world, as alien and majestic as the vast universe itself, still waiting for humanity to explore. The spaghetti monster. While visiting Mustang Island State Park in Texas with her family, Jennifer Baltazar came across strange, eerie, eyeball-like creatures washed up on the shore. She had never seen anything like them before, so she snapped a photo, hoping someone could identify the mysterious beings. Even wildlife officials and marine biologists were baffled. Eventually, the mysterious creatures were identified as Rhizophysa eisenhardtii, commonly known as the spaghetti monster, or string jellyfish, a siphonophore, closely related to the Portuguese man-of-war. They inhabit the tropical waters of the Atlantic and Indian Oceans and are extremely rare in this region. Baltazar reported that she believed one of the small creatures had stung her 8-year-old son, sending him running in pain and terror out of the water. Although the stinging sensation lasted for about 20 minutes before he recovered, the boy refused to go back into the sea. Honestly, no one would want to go through that. Have you ever encountered a bizarre sea creature like this, or been stung by a jellyfish? The mysterious heads at the airport. This story is a bit gruesome, so feel free to skip ahead if you're squeamish. At an airport in Arkansas, employees discovered a bizarre shipment containing roughly 60 human heads, along with other severed head parts, all wrapped in tape and stuffed into plastic containers. It is considered one of the most shocking discoveries in the history of air cargo, and perhaps the most horrifying thing ever sent through the mail. At first, investigators thought they might be medical specimens, but this was never confirmed. According to ABC News, the disturbing shipment may have been tied to the underground trade in human body parts. The first person to find the shipment was a Southwest Airlines employee who likely had to seek professional counseling after such a shock. The heads were not refrigerated or packed in ice, nor was there any sign that they'd been processed professionally. What made it even stranger was that the sender was JLS Consulting LLC, a company specializing in medical research. While it's possible the remains were intended for scientific purposes, the reality is that a black market for human body parts exists, and no one really knows who is behind it. Cover up on Everest. Mark Sinnott, a veteran climber, made some explosive claims about Everest and the involvement of China. The story goes back to 1924, when 2 British explorers, George Mallory and Andrew Irvine, attempted to conquer the northern face of Mount Everest. Both men mysteriously vanished, and it wasn't until 1999 that Mallory's body was found, frozen just 600 meters from the summit. Irvine's remains have never been found. Most importantly, the camera they carried, the device that could reveal whether they actually set foot on the world's highest peak, remains missing. If they reached the top before dying, they would have been the first humans to stand on the roof of the world, beating Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay by 29 years. Mark claimed that Chinese climbers secretly discovered Irvine's body and the camera, but destroyed all the evidence to cover up the truth. He cited confidential sources from the China-Tibet Mountaineering Association who confirmed this story. If that is true, history would need to be rewritten. Mallory and Irvine may have been the first to summit Everest from the north, not the Chinese team of 1960. The mystery metal. Scientists have just discovered a new material they describe as a strange metal. This metal has such bizarre properties that researchers still do not fully understand it. If unlocked, it could lead to breakthroughs for the future, from lossless power grids and quantum computers to unlocking the basic secrets of the universe. Ordinary metals, like copper or silver, behave according to known rules, making them easy to use in applications. But this new metal follows none of the established rules for conducting electricity. Instead of carrying electric current via electrons as usual, it transmits electricity through mysterious waves that scientists cannot yet explain. This metal belongs to the cuprate family copper oxide materials, long known for their high-temperature superconductivity. In fact, humans have been using them for over 30 years. Only recently did scientists realize that electrical current in the material actually moves through these strange waves, not traditional electrons. Yet, the reason why and how to harness these properties for future technology remain a major mystery. Learning to count. One of humanity's oldest mysteries revolves around what seems to be the simplest thing: counting. Today, counting from 1 to 10 is second nature, but tens of thousands of years ago, the concept didn't even exist. So how did people learn to count? Scientists believe this milestone emerged about 60,000 years ago in Western France. They discovered a hyena bone marked with 9 parallel notches made by a Neanderthal to record something in quantities. While such markings on bones were once thought to be art, Professor Francesco Dorico of the University of Bordeaux believes this was humanity's first attempt to record quantity, a giant leap in abstract thinking. The ability to recognize quantity is rare in the animal kingdom. Some creatures, like fish or bees, can distinguish numbers up to 4. But beyond that, everything is just many. For prehistoric humans, telling 10 from 60 was impossible until they developed the true ability to count. It wasn't until around the 3rd century BCE that the number 0 first appeared in Mesopotamia. A few centuries later, in about the 4th century CE, the Maya civilization also invented the concept of 0. The symbols we use every day turn out to be the product of tens of thousands of years of mental evolution, a mark of humanity's monumental leap in intelligence. Dinosaurs in Antarctica. Recently, a team of scientists discovered more than 1 ton of fossils in Antarctica, one of the coldest places on Earth. The phrase 1 ton of fossils isn't a metaphor, it's the actual weight of the dinosaur remains they found. 12 scientists from several countries, including the United States and South Africa, made the discovery on James Ross Island, located at the edge of the Antarctic Peninsula. They found bones belonging to Plesiosaurus and Mosasaurus giant marine reptiles that once lived during a time when Antarctica was still completely underwater. Besides these colossal sea creatures, the team also unearthed many other fossils, including ancient bird remains, specifically prehistoric ducks from the Cretaceous period. The Cult of Cthulhu. If you've ever stayed awake at night wondering whether the ancient god Cthulhu might invade your dreams, it helps to know a little about where the legend came from. Cthulhu is the creation of H.P. Lovecraft, a cosmic monster from his early 20th century fiction. Lovecraft wrote about a secret book called the Necronomicon. According to legend, the Necronomicon is a magical book said to contain the power to summon and communicate with ancient gods sleeping deep beneath the earth. These deities, especially Cthulhu, reach out to people through dreams, driving them insane. In reality, Cthulhu is purely a product of imagination, with no roots in any real myth or tradition. Yet, the idea inspired countless followers. Some people even believe the Necronomicon is real, and that Cthulhu still waits for the day he will reclaim Earth. One example, in 1972, a man calling himself Simon, a Slavic Orthodox priest, walked into a witchcraft shop in New York, carrying an ancient manuscript. He claimed it was more than 700 years old. On the first page, the word Necronomicon appeared. At first glance, it seemed he had found the original legendary book, but it turned out to be just another forgery, one of dozens of fake Necronomicons that surfaced after Lovecraft's death in 1937. Even though it's all fiction, the dream of uncontrollable dark forces continues to haunt humanity, a reflection of our instinctive fear when facing the shadows within ourselves. Ancient fingerprints. At the Ness of Brodgar archaeological site in Scotland, archaeologists discovered a mysterious fingerprint left on a clay pot, dating back more than 5,000 years. The team has been excavating the site since 2006, but this was the first time they found an actual human fingerprint. The mark was found by pottery specialist Roy Towers as he examined a collection of Neolithic ceramics unearthed there. To confirm it was a real fingerprint, he used a special reflective photography technique. Researchers hope this fingerprint will help determine the age and gender of the potter who left their mark thousands of years ago. According to Nick Card, the excavation director at Ness of Brodgar, people often forget about the humans behind these precious artifacts. But thanks to this discovery, archaeologists feel a closer connection to Scotland's ancient ancestors. While the fingerprint may not reveal any major secrets about human history, it remains a fascinating find, one that makes us wonder why ancient fingerprints are so rarely found on handmade artifacts around the world. Neptune's deep freeze. Scientists have just announced a surprising discovery about Neptune. After years of studying the atmosphere of this icy planet, they realized its global temperature has steadily declined over the past 17 years, even as its polar regions have clearly warmed. While there are no weather stations on Neptune, astronomers can measure its temperature using infrared photography. From 2003 to 2020, images revealed the planet's temperature dropped by nearly 46 degrees Fahrenheit, a massive decline, enough to wipe out all life if it happened on Earth. Michael Roman, an astronomer at the University of Leicester, admitted that the finding contradicts every earlier prediction. Researchers had assumed Neptune would warm up, since for the past 17 years it's been summer in the planet's southern hemisphere, the time when Neptune receives the most sunlight in its orbit. 1 year on Neptune is equivalent to 165 years on Earth. The planet lies about 4.5 billion kilometers from the sun, and each season lasts up to 40 years. The current summer began in 2005 and will end around 2045. The average temperature on Neptune is -364 degrees Fahrenheit, but in recent years, at the height of summer, it has fallen even lower from -316 down to -366 degrees Fahrenheit. So far, no one knows why. Ancient shrimp brought back to life. A sudden heavy rainstorm in Arizona brought dormant eggs of ancient shrimp back to life. It might not be the most earth-shattering discovery, but it's certainly one of the strangest. These three-eyed creatures are called triops, an ancient type of shrimp you can even buy at pet stores as a novelty for children. As adults, they grow to about 10 centimeters long, resembling tadpoles but with 3 eyes and a pointed tail. Their ancestors have been around for hundreds of millions of years, long before the dinosaurs ever appeared. Triops are found all over the world, from Africa and North America to Europe and Asia. They are often called living fossils, tracing their origins back roughly 419 million years, and they have survived every mass extinction event in history. In Flagstaff, Arizona, a heavy rain in July revived countless triops eggs lying dormant in the dry earth. The creatures appeared suddenly in temporary puddles and were even seen swimming in a ball field near Wupatki National Monument. Remarkably, triops eggs can remain dormant for decades, even a century, waiting for a rainstorm strong enough to wake them. When that happens, the sight of three-eyed shrimp swimming in the desert leaves many locals both amazed and bewildered. The knife-wielding spider god. In Peru, archaeologists have just uncovered the most chilling mural ever found in the country. In 2021, they announced the discovery of a massive painting depicting a spider god holding a knife, rendered on the wall of a mud brick temple in Virú province, northern Peru, about 480 kilometers from Lima. This artwork dates back approximately 3,200 years and belongs to the ancient Kupasnik culture. The image was painted in ochre earth tones, with shades of yellow, gray, and white. Ironically, the mural was discovered by avocado farmers as they tilled the land with tractors. Unknowingly, their machines destroyed nearly 60% of the archaeological site, though it's likely the farmers had no idea about the heritage lying beneath their feet. The ancient temple itself had already collapsed, lost in a tangle of weeds and crumbling stones, so if it weren't for the vibrant colors of the knife-wielding spider god, no one would have realized this place was once sacred ground. Archaeologist Regulo Franco Jordan told local reporters that the temple may have been a holy site used for rituals, most likely dedicated to a water deity. The mural of the spider god could represent this very god, linked to rainmaking ceremonies held from January through March, at the beginning of the wet season. As for why the spider was depicted holding a knife, that remains a mystery with no answer. Soviet-era bunkers. It seems that bunkers turn up everywhere. Old bomb shelters from the Cold War are sometimes found beneath aging homes, but rarely does anyone discover a site so well preserved, like it was frozen in time from the moment it was abandoned. In 2017, an urban explorer known only by the YouTube handle She stumbled upon a small concrete structure while wandering through an old Russian factory. In his video, he navigated dark corridors, then opened 2 massive metal doors, revealing a room still equipped with ventilation and working lights crammed full of relics from a lost era. Inside the bunker were all sorts of things: gas masks, newspaper clippings, photographs, tools, boots, medicines, clothing, and crates of equipment dating back to World War II. Coats hung on hooks, documents plastered the walls, and one corner served as a sleeping area, complete with survival gear. The exact location of the bunker has never been revealed, and it's clear the explorer was never supposed to be there, making the origin and purpose of the shelter even more mysterious, and fueling endless theories online about why it was abandoned as if only yesterday. Glacier House. In 1886, the Canadian Pacific Railway was extended across Rogers Pass, a treacherous region infamous for its steep terrain and deadly avalanches. That same year, Glacier National Park was established, and right at the heart of the pass, Canada's first luxury alpine hotel was built, Glacier House. With the majestic Rockies as its backdrop, the hotel quickly became a dream destination. Swiss guides were brought in to lead guests across glaciers and through the awe-inspiring mountains. But on the 4th of March, 1910, a catastrophic avalanche claimed 58 lives at Rogers Pass. After the tragedy, the railway had to be rerouted via a tunnel, and Glacier House gradually fell into obscurity. By 1916, the original line had been officially abandoned. It wasn't until 1963, when the Trans-Canada Highway was built, that people could access the area again. By then, Glacier House was nothing but a ruin hidden deep in the forest, a silent reminder of a golden age buried beneath snow and disaster. Prehistoric footprints. Along England's northwestern coast, thousands of fossilized traces from prehistoric animals have been found, imprinted on ancient mud that has hardened over millennia. Alongside these are human footprints, the oldest dating back roughly 9,000 years, the youngest to medieval times, about 1,000 years ago. Recently, Dr. Allison Burns discovered a perfectly preserved footprint belonging to a young man who walked this shore about 8,200 years ago. The print was so detailed that Dr. Burns could see evidence of a bunion on the little toe. In prehistoric times, people rarely wore shoes, they walked barefoot all day. Every time they sat down, the little toe would rub against the ground, eventually forming a telltale callus. Long ago, this place was a tidal mudflat, not the beach it is today. Ancient humans once crossed that muddy expanse, leaving footprints in the wet earth. Under the blazing sun, the mud dried and captured every detail. Later, time buried the prints under layers of sediment until now, when these traces have resurfaced, reminding us that this land was once home to bison, ancient lynx, and even wolves now extinct. The frozen graves of warrior women. Amid the icy lands of Western Russia, archaeologists have unearthed strange tombs, the resting place of 4 Scythian warrior women. They ranged in age from teenagers to over 40, buried with spears, arrowheads, and even cavalry saddles. The oldest among them still wore a ceremonial gold headdress called a kafaz, a symbol of status and power. Ancient texts and modern research show that the Scythians were a fierce nomadic people living across the cold steppes of Russia and Kazakhstan. They trained both sons and daughters as skilled warriors, like an Eastern version of the Spartans. These legendary women may have inspired the myth of the Amazons in Greek mythology, the land of heroic female warriors, and, much later, became the origin for Wonder Woman in modern pop culture. This is the first time archaeologists have found direct evidence of multiple generations of warrior women buried together. They may have been mothers and daughters, or sisters all raised from childhood to defend their tribe. The mysterious gold sword hilt. In the Blair Drummond region of the United Kingdom, a metal detectorist made a remarkable find, a pure gold sword hilt valued at more than $30,000. According to experts at the National Museum of Scotland, this artifact is truly one of a kind. No similar discovery has ever been made in Britain. The hilt is exquisitely crafted, adorned with intricate religious and mythological motifs. Under close inspection, archaeologists noted that the hilt resembles a predatory bird, with beaks at both ends and piercing eyes. The decorative art combines Anglo-Saxon style with Christian symbolism. Engravings on the hilt include the Tree of Life, scenes of the crucifixion, and various legendary creatures. Every tiny detail demonstrates masterful craftsmanship, as if the hilt was not merely a weapon, but a sacred treasure. Though its exact age is uncertain, experts believe it dates back about 1,000 years to the early Middle Ages. It may once have belonged to a noble warrior, or perhaps even a king. A rare gift in the forest. When retired Professor John Lockheed purchased a house in rural Conway, Massachusetts in the 1970s, he also acquired 250 acres of forest around it, hoping no one would intrude on his privacy. Unsure what to do with the woodland, he joined a government forest management program. By the 1980s, Lockheed decided to participate in an oak regeneration initiative, a project offering technical and financial support to landowners seeking to restore oak forests. Experts from the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Natural Resources Conservation Service surveyed the land, selecting a plot of about 1.6 hectares deep within Lockheed's woods, where existing vegetation would be cleared to plant new oaks. While scouting the area before clearing, a friend of Lockheed's happened to spot chestnuts on the ground. Standing alone in the forest was an American chestnut tree, a species once iconic in the forests of eastern North America, but nearly wiped out by blight, leaving only scattered survivors. A representative from the American Chestnut Foundation came to verify and confirmed it was a rare, healthy tree. Lockheed immediately spared it from being cut down and cleared the surrounding trees so it could receive more sunlight and have a chance to thrive. Surviving American chestnut trees like this are always sought out by the Foundation for crossbreeding with blight-resistant Chinese chestnuts in hopes of reviving the species. If the American chestnut comes back, it could transform the entire timber industry and the forests of the eastern United States. Lockheed once shared in NRCS magazine that he hopes his neighbors recognize the value of forest management, beginning with protecting each small tree, because every great change starts from a single seed. The mummy inside the Oakland Convention Center. At the end of March 2022, while working inside the Henry J. Kaiser Convention Center in Oakland, California, construction workers uncovered a mummified human body wedged deep within the walls of the historic, century-old building. What shocked people was not just the location, but the unanswered question: how could a body have lain undisturbed for years between layers of plaster and massive concrete columns right at the top of the auditorium? The remains were determined to be male, and based on the level of decomposition, may have been there for about 5 years before being found. Police found no signs of foul play. There were no wounds, no bindings, no evidence of murder. Every clue only deepened the mystery. The most likely theory is that the victim accidentally fell into a narrow gap between 2 walls, became trapped behind the plaster, and could not escape. In the sealed space, he may have suffocated without anyone ever knowing his chilling story, buried within the architecture for years. The mystery of West Virginia. When the first European pioneers set foot in what would become the state of West Virginia, they encountered things beyond imagination: strange artifacts, mysterious carvings, burial mounds, and the ruins of ancient stone walls. The native people living there at the time could not explain the origins of these discoveries. They seemed to come from a lost civilization. Among the finds, the petroglyphs, rock carvings, were what most astonished explorers. They depicted humans, animals, and indecipherable shapes, as if conveying some unknown message. But no one knows what they truly mean. Over the centuries, most carvings have been destroyed. Some were buried when modern structures were built. Others vanished underwater when rivers were dammed. Among the few that remain, the most famous and mysterious is the Half Moon site, now lying beneath the Ohio River. In 1938, James McBride surveyed the site and found bizarre images: half-human, half-animal forms, like hybrids between people and beasts. Some scholars have speculated they might depict extraterrestrials from distant worlds. To this day, no one knows for sure what the truth is. Life-sized human doll. In February 2022, police in Georgia received a report of a woman's body lying face down on a forest trail south of Atlanta. A hiker had called in, terrified that they had stumbled across a corpse. Officers rushed to the scene, but as they approached, they discovered it wasn't a real person. It was a life-sized human doll, abandoned in the underbrush, dressed in real clothes and caked in dirt. The Jones County Sheriff's Office even posted the story on Facebook, sharing photos of the plastic victim, and gave her the name Selena M. Given the circumstances, it's not surprising that the hiker thought they had found an actual body. The doll was fully dressed, wore white socks, and looked so lifelike it was unsettling, and of course, no one wanted to get close enough to check if it was real. A bizarre discovery, truly spine-chilling in the deep woods. The plastic, eating insects. A shocking discovery has rocked the scientific world. Many microorganisms and insects are evolving to digest plastic. While the plastic pollution crisis shows no sign of resolution, nature is beginning to respond in unexpected ways, even in cold, deep, underground places. Scientists analyzed over 200 million genes from environmental DNA samples and identified more than 30,000 types of enzymes capable of breaking down 10 different kinds of plastics. Remarkably, the amount and variety of enzymes found at any location directly correspond to the quantity of plastic discarded there. In other words, nature is adapting on its own to manage the waste humanity produces. At Chalmers University, researchers admitted they never expected to discover so many rapidly evolving enzymes. But with plastic production rising from 2 million tons to 380 million tons per year in the last 70 years, this evolution may simply be a survival reflex. In 2016, Japanese scientists first discovered an insect capable of eating plastic at a landfill. It produced a unique enzyme extremely effective at decomposing plastic bottles. By 2020, this enzyme had evolved, making the decomposition process 6 times faster. Although not yet a comprehensive solution, this is certainly a strange and hopeful turning point in the struggle to rescue our planet from the plastic disaster. The secret bomb shelter. Thanks to TikTok, many eerie discoveries in people's homes have come to light. Just this past March, Jennifer Little, a California resident, shared her journey of uncovering a secret bomb shelter beneath her house. Through 3 video clips, she described finding an iron manhole cover right under the bedroom floor while rearranging her belongings. Truly, nobody wants to face something like that under their own home. Jennifer nominated her husband to go down first and explore the dark shelter. "You go in, I'll follow." What would you do in her situation? Her husband bravely explored the mysterious space and discovered a Cold War-era fallout shelter, likely built in the 1950s. The shelter had a ventilation system, 2 bunk beds, a chamber pot, storage cabinets, wall hooks, and even connected to a newly discovered dry room. Though it sounds frightening, Jennifer was rather nonchalant. She knew the house was built in 1951, a time when nuclear tensions were high, and many families in Central California constructed bomb shelters just in case. Still, having a fallout shelter directly under the bedroom is an odd and chilling surprise. The mysterious settlement on Norfolk Island. When Captain James Cook landed on Norfolk Island in 1774, he described it as an untouched paradise, never before visited by humans. The island sits in the Pacific Ocean, about 1,450 kilometers from the nearest Australian coast, with no inhabitants, just lush green trees and rich vegetation. What he didn't know was that centuries earlier, people had already set foot on this island. During an archaeological expedition by the Australian Museum, scientists uncovered undeniable traces of an ancient settlement established by Polynesians. Beneath the earth, they found stone tools and the ruins of buildings. Based on dating, the settlement may have existed around the year 1250 CE, a period when Polynesians were expanding to New Zealand and across the Pacific Islands. This discovery completely rewrote previous understanding, which held that Norfolk was once uninhabited. Yet, who were these first settlers? Where did they come from? How did they live? And why did they leave? To this day, those questions remain unanswered. Artifacts beneath melting glaciers. About 3,000 years ago, someone lost a shoe while crossing the Jotunheimen Mountains in Norway. The owner could never have imagined their possession would be found after 3 millennia. In 2007, archaeologists found the nearly intact shoe frozen deep inside the glacier. And that wasn't the only strange discovery revealed by the melting ice. Roughly 4,000 years ago, a tiny red-winged bird died on these mountains and was immediately buried in snow. As the ice recently melted, its body reappeared so well preserved that its internal organs were still intact. In recent years, hundreds of artifacts and animal remains have emerged from melting glaciers, from horse tracks to prehistoric hunting tools. Professor Britt Solly of the NTNU University Museum says that not a single year passes without some remarkable new discovery. Satellite images from 2020 show that nearly 40% of the permafrost in this region has melted, revealing a treasure trove of history from the Viking Age and even earlier. The oldest artifact found, a wooden arrow shaft, is 6,100 years old, a testament to the harsh lives of ancient people in the far northern ice. The Cerne Abbas Giant. On the Cerne Abbas hillside in England, a strange figure carved into the slope has existed for centuries, a giant naked man holding a large club in his right hand, outlined in shallow trenches filled with white chalk. The giant stands over 160 feet tall, with just the genitalia measuring more than 10 meters, making it the largest and most bizarre chalk drawing in the United Kingdom. No one knows who created it or when. Only 2 chalk figures remain in England, and Cerne Abbas is the most prominent. In 2020, Dr. Mike Allen decided to conduct a full survey of the hill, and he believes he found the answer. By analyzing the soil, he determined the giant figure may have been created around the year 700, over 1,300 years ago. The remaining question is simply, why? One plausible theory is that it represents a deity. Ancient Anglo-Saxons once worshipped a god named Helith, and perhaps they carved this giant image as an act of devotion. But over time, its original meaning was forgotten. It wasn't until around 1560 that locals rediscovered the colossal artwork and were astonished to realize they had been living under the gaze of a giant made of limestone, silently watching from the hillside for centuries. Where is Cleopatra's tomb? To this day, no one knows the exact resting place of the legendary Queen Cleopatra. According to ancient records, she was buried alongside her lover Mark Antony after they were defeated by Octavian, the Roman general, who would later become Emperor Augustus. In her final moments, Antony chose to die by suicide, while Cleopatra vanished by design, leaving no trace for her enemies to find her body. Thousands of years have passed, and these 2 towering figures of history are still resting somewhere beneath the soil of Alexandria, Egypt. But there are still those who haven't given up the search. For 20 years, archaeologist Kathleen Martinez has tirelessly hunted for Cleopatra's final resting place. Martinez believes Cleopatra deliberately hid her own tomb. She sees the queen as a brilliant strategist, a woman who spoke 9 languages fluently, studied politics, economics, and mathematics, and who once rallied an army in the Sai Desert at just 21 years old to reclaim her throne. At Taposiris Magna, a site with temples dedicated to Osiris and Isis, Martinez's team has uncovered 16 tombs and numerous artifacts linked to Cleopatra, including coins bearing her portrait. A ceramic mask found beneath the temple of Isis may even be the death mask of Mark Antony. They also discovered a tomb covered in gold leaf, apparently untouched, possibly the eternal resting place of Cleopatra herself. Ground-penetrating radar shows a labyrinth of burial chambers, corridors, and 3 structures that could be royal tombs beneath the surface. As of December 2021, the clearest signs yet have emerged. After millennia, the dream of finding Cleopatra's burial site, the ultimate symbol of ancient power and intrigue, may finally be within reach. Tiny Egyptian fetus. A discovery in England has deeply moved many. The smallest Egyptian mummy ever found turned out to be an unborn fetus, only about 16 weeks old. The tiny remains were found inside a miniature coffin, less than 45 centimeters long, excavated at Giza in 1907. For more than a century, people believed the coffin simply held the organs of an adult, placed alongside a larger coffin. But it wasn't until researchers at the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge performed a CT scan that they were stunned to find a tiny skeleton, clear evidence of a mummified fetus. Experts believe this was the result of a miscarriage, with the tiny soul never given a chance to live even a single day outside the womb. What's truly touching is the way the ancient mother chose to bury her unborn child, as if it had lived a full human life with dignity and reverence. Though just a bit longer than a handspan, the small coffin was intricately carved, detailed down to the finest elements. It is not only the youngest mummy ever found, but a testament to a mother's grief and love that transcends time and death. The largest comet ever discovered. Not long ago, astronomers identified one of the largest comets ever recorded, and what set hearts racing was the fact that it was barreling straight toward Earth. While it can't be confirmed as the largest, this comet is certainly among the biggest by size. It's a colossal icy rock, formed some 4 billion years ago, speeding through space at over 35,000 kilometers per hour. But don't worry, the comet will not collide with our planet. Calculations show it will pass Earth at a distance of about 1 billion miles, with its closest approach expected in the year 2031, unless some rogue cosmic wind sends it off course. This comet measures more than 130 kilometers across, about 100,000 times larger than a typical comet. At first, scientists even mistook it for a dwarf planet, until they saw it sport a glowing tail, a signature of a frozen space wanderer. Using the Hubble Space Telescope, scientists analyzed the comet's core. They determined it is the largest ever recorded in astronomy, and even more astonishing, it is as black as coal. According to planetary scientist Professor David Jewett, the core is darker than charcoal, a massive, cold, and shadowy object racing through space. The Christmas surprise. In 2015, a man walking his dog along a riverbank in Argentina discovered something that looked like a fossilized shell sticking out of the mud. At first, he thought he'd found a dinosaur egg. His wife later recalled that when her husband said he'd picked up a dinosaur egg, everyone laughed, thinking it was a joke because it sounded too unbelievable. But as it turned out, what Neophis had found was not a dinosaur egg, but the fossil shell of a prehistoric animal. That scaly black shell most likely belonged to a glyptodon, a giant creature that resembled today's armadillo. Glyptodons once roamed throughout South America for tens of millions of years before they went extinct, even spreading to North America when the continents connected. The specimen Neophis found dates to about 10,000 years ago, the time when the species disappeared from the Earth, making it possibly one of the last individuals ever to exist. Glyptodon fossils are found fairly often in Argentina, and it's believed that these giant armadillos were hunted to extinction by humans for their meat. If you discovered a fossil like that, would you sell it, keep it, or do something else entirely? Ancient Assyrian artifacts. Recently, new mysterious artifacts have again been discovered in Iraq. These are extremely rare Assyrian bas-reliefs, carved about 2,700 years ago under the rule of King Sargon II, yet another reminder of the mighty power of the Assyrian Empire in the 8th century BCE. At that time, Sargon II ruled a vast territory across the Middle East, making every neighboring kingdom wary and fearful. In this excavation, a team of Italian and Iraqi scientists discovered magnificent stone bas-reliefs, decorating an ancient canal system cut deep into the rock. The details were so exquisite that archaeologists were stunned such works are normally only seen in temples or royal palaces. According to archaeologist Daniela Bonacassi, Assyrian stone reliefs are an incredibly rare type of artifact. Since 1845, nothing like these has ever been found, and researchers believe most remain buried deep in the earth, forever out of reach. But the presence of such stunning works along an ancient canal suggests the Assyrian Empire may once have been the glittering jewel of the Middle East, where masterful sculpture adorned not only palaces and temples, but the entire kingdom. Sadly, no one has yet deciphered the true meaning of these reliefs. This region of Iraq has been closed to researchers almost continuously since the 1970s, making it nearly impossible to unlock the secrets of ancient Assyrian society. All archaeologists know is that the carvings seem to show King Sargon II with a procession of mysterious Assyrian deities, including one god riding a dragon. The missing explorer. Polar explorer Joran Brenland died in a cave, frozen and starving, during an expedition along Greenland's northern coast in November 1907. Brenland, an Inuit born in Greenland, was the last surviving member of his three-man team, and the only one whose remains were ever found. As he waited for death in the cave, he recorded his final thoughts in a diary on a page stained with a thick, black mark that no one could identify for years. Only recently, thanks to modern technology, scientists discovered the stain contained oil, burnt rubber, and even traces of feces, leading to the theory that Brenland, in desperation, used anything he could to try to light his oil lamp, hoping for a little warmth. But every effort failed, and he succumbed to the brutal cold. Brenland died while crossing the inland ice, trying to make his way back to the main camp. By the time he found shelter, his two teammates had already died from exhaustion and freezing temperatures. His journal detailed where the bodies of his companions were left behind, but no one ever found them. Another expedition found Brenland's body and belongings in 1908, buried him where he fell, and brought his diary back to Copenhagen, where it is now kept at the Royal Danish Library. The earliest domesticated wolves in Europe. In a small cave in southern Germany, archaeologists discovered fossils of ancient dogs dating from 177,000 to 12,000 years ago. DNA analysis revealed a mix of dog, wolf, and fox. What was surprising was that all three species had a low-protein diet, likely because it was provided by humans. Evidence suggests that prehistoric cave dwellers raised and fed not just one, but all three of these animals. But the most astonishing finding is a new theory. This cave may have been Europe's earliest center of wolf domestication. According to Dr. Chris Baumann from the University of Tübingen, DNA samples show a genetic link between ancient wolves and modern domestic dogs. It is known that dogs diverged from their wild ancestors about 16,000 years ago, a date that matches the age of the bones found here. It appears that our ancient ancestors living in caves were not only hunters and gatherers, but also sophisticated enough to influence the evolution of wild animals, creating the first four-legged friends in human history. The mysterious god. One of the rarest and strangest archaeological finds ever made is a nearly 9-foot limestone pillar pulled from a muddy river in Ukraine in 1848 after being lost for thousands of years. This artifact is known as the Zeebrugge idol, and researchers believe it depicts a pre-Christian god with 4 heads. The pillar is tall and eerie, possibly missing a lower segment that would make it even taller. Many believe the figure is Svetovid, the 4-headed war god worshipped by Slavic peoples before Christianity spread. Researchers think the statue was toppled and thrown into the river sometime between 800 and 1000 CE, right as Christianity began to replace old religions in Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia. To this day, the true meaning of the idol remains a mystery. It could represent a 4-headed war god, or perhaps 4 separate deities now lost to time. Sadly, nearly all traces of the old Slavic gods, including temples and statues, were destroyed after the population converted. It is also possible the idol was created by some now forgotten culture. Camel reliefs in Saudi Arabia. Amid the vast deserts of Saudi Arabia, an almost invisible group of ancient carvings has been uncovered massive bas-reliefs of camels etched into rock faces, far from any human settlement. Initially discovered in 2018, recent research suggests the carvings date from 7,000 to 8,000 years ago, making them the oldest large-scale animal sculptures ever found on Earth. Today, the reliefs are badly eroded by wind, sand, and time. The shapes can still be seen, but most details have faded after millennia of sun, rain, and sandstorms. No one knows who made them. The style resembles reliefs at Petra in Jordan, but these are far older. They predate Stonehenge, the pyramids of Giza, and even the domestication of camels in the Middle East. These giant sculptures, like a Mount Rushmore for camels, were carved into stone using advanced techniques that would have required scaffolding and specialized tools. Yet, there is no trace of any settlement nearby. Who created these enormous camels, when civilization had barely begun, and for what purpose? That mystery remains unsolved. A new spider species. In 2012, a Miami Zoo staffer was amazed to discover a large black spider while checking reptile research traps. When photos were sent to conservation and research teams, no one could identify any known spider species from the area. The mystery lingered for 2 years, until another specimen was captured and sent to experts. Dr. Rebecca Godwin, a biology professor at Piedmont University in Georgia, published a scientific report confirming it as a new species in the genus Umidea. It was named Umidea richmond, the pine rockland trapdoor spider, living in the pine rockland forest, an extremely endangered ecosystem surrounding the zoo. This spider is venomous, with a bite said to be as painful as a bee sting. Females are 2 to 3 times larger than males, who are only about the size of a small coin. In closely related species, females can live up to 20 years, making them some of the longest-lived spiders. They spend their entire lives in self-dug burrows, ambushing prey that passes by, leaving only to mate or hunt. Males may live underground for 7 years before emerging to find a mate and usually die soon after. In 35 years, zoo staff have only encountered this spider a handful of times, suggesting it may be as endangered as the fragmented ecosystem it calls home. The jellyfish, dolphin creature. A diver happened upon a strange creature beneath the Mediterranean Sea, a being he described as a jellyfish in the shape of a dolphin. The video he captured quickly went viral online, sending chills through many viewers. What he found was a transparent, crystal-like mass floating in the water, a kind of unidentified flying object, only under the ocean. The problem was this: though the creature resembled a jellyfish soft and gelatinous, it seemed to have a backbone. But jellyfish have no bones at all. They are invertebrates. So what exactly was this thing? It was clearly not a dolphin, despite its fleetingly similar silhouette. Look closer, and it appeared to be a hybrid between an invisible sea snake and a jellyfish, or perhaps even a gigantic glassworm. The most plausible explanation from experts is that it could belong to the salp group, tube-shaped, transparent marine animals that drift like jelly. These creatures are invertebrates, but have a nerve cord running down their bodies and a soft structure that can easily be mistaken for a spine, whatever it was. This remains one of the clearest signs that the ocean is still full of mysteries humanity has yet to unravel. A strange alien satellite. Astronomers have just discovered one of the weirdest moons in the universe, hidden inside a star system far away, some 5,700 light-years from Earth. In the constellation Lyra, the discovery was made with NASA's Kepler Space Telescope before its retirement in 2018. The mysterious moon measures 2.6 times the diameter of Earth and orbits a giant gas planet about the size of Jupiter. This moon is larger than any of the 220 known moons in our solar system, even dwarfing Earth's own moon many times over. Scientists are unsure of its composition or mass, but researchers at Columbia University suspect it may have a rocky core and a thick atmosphere. With its immense size, it's classified as an exomoon, and so far, only 2 exomoons have ever been detected. Astonishingly, the other known exomoon is even bigger, about the size of Neptune, and some 8,000 light-years away from Earth. Unlike our rocky moon, this one is mostly made of gas, more like a planet than a satellite. Asteroid dust. Speaking of things from space, scientists recently discovered dust left over from the very asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. While everyone knows dinosaurs were eradicated by a massive impact, actually finding remnants of the killer asteroid turned theory into indisputable fact. A team at the University of Texas drilled core samples from the impact crater beneath the sea off Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, the site of the catastrophic collision millions of years ago. Asteroid dust was identified through iridium, a rare element on Earth but abundant in meteorites. A dramatic spike in iridium in the geological layer shows that 66 million years ago, a colossal rock from space slammed into the planet. This same iridium-rich layer has been found worldwide, proving that the asteroid's debris exploded into countless pieces, soared into the sky, blocked out the sun, and then fell back to Earth as millions, perhaps billions of burning stones, nearly incinerating the entire planet. Isar Castle Fortress in the clouds. On the Cappadocia Plateau of Turkey, at an elevation of more than 1,270 meters above sea level, Isar Castle rises against the sky like something straight out of a fairy tale. For much of the year, this ancient fortress is buried in white snow, turning the landscape into a dreamlike world suspended among the clouds. The town of Uchazar, home to the castle, has existed since the Hittite era, more than 3,000 years ago. However, there are no official records until the 14th century. The Hittites once used the mountain's cold caves as shelters from invasions. Later, in the 7th century, the Byzantines transformed these mountains into a defensive buffer against the spread of Islam, but ultimately, they lost control. Izar Castle then fell into the hands of Islamic conquerors. Today, seen from afar, Uchizar looks like a city floating in the sky, with its stone castle perched precariously above the valley. Though time has eroded it, caves and tunnels carved into the rock are still visible, despite many having collapsed. From a distance, the castle now looks like a giant termite mound sinking into the stone, but it remains a mountain fortress, an ancient lookout hewn into the cliffs to guard the vast land below. A relic both majestic and desolate, echoing with the distant voices of an ancient world. The Barana Tower. The Barana Tower, located in the Republic of Kyrgyzstan, is the last surviving relic of the great city of Balasagun. This place was once a bustling metropolis on the ancient Silk Road, a major commercial and cultural hub over 1,000 years ago. Now, all that remains is a solitary brick tower standing alone on the green steppe. Architecturally, Barana is a minaret, a tall tower built next to a mosque so the muezzin can call the faithful to prayer. Yet, curiously, there's no trace of any mosque here, and archaeologists have never found any such ruins nearby. The tower was constructed in the 11th century and originally stood more than 43 meters high. Earthquakes in the 15th century brought it down. Now, it stands only about 25 meters tall. Today, Barana Tower is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a proud symbol of Kyrgyzstan. The area around the tower has been excavated, revealing many baubles, stone grave markers of ancient Turks, as well as remnants of fortresses and burial mounds. No one knows for sure who built the tower or why Balasagun was abandoned. The tower stands as a silent witness to a once glorious Central Asian civilization, long before modern borders existed. The city was built by the Sogdians, an ancient Iranian civilization about 2,000 years ago, later conquered by the nomadic Karakhanids from Mongolia and Siberia. When the Karakhanids converted to Islam, they began building mosques and towers like Barana. The rise of Islam led to the decline of Buddhism in the region, hastening Balasagun's fall. By the 12th century, the city had entered a serious decline. Barana Tower was erected as part of a great city mosque, blending ancient Sogdian architectural style with new Persian elements. In 1218, the Mongols swept through, devastating Balasagun, but for some reason, they left the tower standing. Most of the city was reduced to ashes, but Barana Tower survived. By the 15th century, earthquakes again struck, destroying what remained except for the lone tower. For centuries, it has remained, weathered but unbroken. Even in the 20th century, Russians dismantled bricks from the ruin to build their homes. Today, the Barana Tower stands as an archaeological marvel, on the steppe, the only testament that an ancient city once thrived here, rising boldly beneath the endless blue sky. Part 51. The Lena Horse, oldest liquid blood ever found. A young Lena horse, just 1 week old, drowned in mud at the mouth of the Botagaika crater in eastern Siberia. Not long afterward, its body was perfectly preserved in permafrost, with skin and hair still intact. The Lena horse is an extinct species that once roamed Siberia at the end of the Ice Age and disappeared about 30,000 years ago. The horse's remains were rediscovered in 2018, revealing a stunning secret. It still contained the oldest liquid blood ever recorded in history. Nearly every internal organ remained intact after all those millennia. This is only the second animal from the Ice Age ever found with liquid blood, the first being a mammoth sample, more than 32,000 years old. In fact, the foal's blood is over 10,000 years older than the mammoth splaying. Scientists named the horse Buttercup. Anatomical analysis revealed it was a distinct, now extinct species, genetically different from modern Yakuchian horses. The research team spent months trying to extract a sufficiently intact DNA sample, even hoping one day to clone the horse. However, the chances of success remain remote. They focus particularly on muscle cells and internal organs for cloning purposes, knowing full well that such advances are still a long way off. The petrified remains of Sagado. Girolamo Sagado was so obsessed with mummies that after his expedition to Egypt in 1818, he devoted his life to the art of body preservation. While traditional mummification involved draining as much moisture as possible from the body and wrapping it in linen, Sagado wondered if he could do the opposite, inject a special solution into a corpse to turn it to stone. The results were chilling. Bodies appeared to petrify instantly after death, yet were perfectly preserved for the ages. Sagado petrified heads, chests, elbows, and even children's corpses, all with his secret serum. Modern scientists now know that Sagado's solution had to be injected within a few hours after death, allowing it to spread throughout the body's veins. Had Sagado ever revealed his formula, the history of body preservation might have turned out very differently. But he kept his method secret, leading many contemporaries to believe it was some kind of Egyptian magic. That unique technique was buried with him, and to this day, no one has ever been able to replicate it. The Lost Civilization of Turkey. In 1996, German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt discovered megalithic stones arranged in deliberate patterns in Turkey. These stones turned out to be more than 11,000 years old, built by ancient humans who lacked any modern tools to construct such structures. The site is called Göbekli Tepe, and it predates Stonehenge by some 6,000 years. Schmidt spent the last 18 years of his life excavating the site until his death from a heart attack in 2014. At that point, he estimated that only 5% of Göbekli Tepe's mysterious area had been uncovered. Many archaeologists worldwide believe the rest of the ancient city is still buried, awaiting discovery. This is considered one of the greatest mysteries in modern archaeology. The problem is that the construction methods at Göbekli Tepe fly in the face of everything we know about society at that time. The people in this region were supposed to be simple hunter-gatherer tribes, with no agriculture, no advanced tools, and no settled social structure, just nomads hunting large game. So what sparked this turning point? Was there another civilization, or some mysterious group behind the achievement? Some even suggest alien intervention, that extraterrestrials gave technology to our ancestors, jump-starting the first civilization. Because Göbekli Tepe is the first large-scale human-built structure ever known, launching a new era for humanity, and it seems to have appeared out of nowhere. The hobbits of humanity. A hobbit, an ancient relative of modern humans, may still be hiding in the jungles of Indonesia. According to a recent controversial claim, this hobbit species, known as Homo floresiensis, lived on the island of Flores from 700,000 to 60,000 years ago. These prehistoric people stood only about 1 meter tall, with tiny brains but feet as large as those described in fantasy tales. Their origins remain mysterious, as Homo floresiensis evolved in isolation and then vanished without a trace. This is also one of the greatest puzzles about the development of ancient humanity. Recently, Gregory Forth, a retired anthropologist from the University of Alberta, suggested that hobbit-like beings might still exist on Flores. He told Live Science that since no one knows the exact time of their extinction, and since Flores is vast and mysterious, the chance that some survive is not impossible. Many other scientists dismiss the idea as absurd, and so far, no one has ever found a living, small-statured human. But Forth remains convinced that the day of discovery may yet come. Ancient Viking Mystery. A strange Viking treasure discovered on the Isle of Man may have solved a mystery that has lingered for over 1,000 years. The hoard includes 2 extremely rare brooches, tangible proof that Viking women once lived on the island. The artifacts date from 900 to 950, a popular style of ornament among women of that era. What's remarkable is that until now, there was no evidence of any Scandinavian women living on the Isle of Man in the early Viking period. Archaeologists had always assumed the colony was all male, which is highly unusual, since a village can't exist with only men. According to Alison Fox, the island's chief archaeologist, many Viking graves from the early 10th century have been found, but all belong to wealthy men. Now, thanks to 2 brooches accidentally discovered by a metal detectorist in 2018, there is evidence of Viking women's presence. Yet this raises another mystery. Could there have been just 2 women in the entire Viking settlement? If so, the community feasts must have been incredibly awkward and perhaps full of jealousy. Part 56. The 19th century tunnel. When Gary Machen, a resident of Alton, Illinois, noticed that the walkway in front of his house was starting to sink, he decided to repair it himself. While digging, he unexpectedly uncovered the entrance to an underground tunnel, one he'd never heard of before. Estimates place the construction around the year 1840, meaning it predates Machen's own house by nearly 50 years, and it's still remarkably well built. Speaking with Fox 2 now, Machen said it must have taken many people and a great deal of time to construct the tunnel, as no one could have done it alone. The tunnel may have served various purposes, from storage to being part of the Underground Railroad that helped enslaved people escape to freedom. Machen explained that there used to be a ferry dock in Alton, carrying passengers across to Missouri, making this area an important link in the journey of those seeking freedom. The tunnel seems to have been filled in around 1895, when locals laid bricks to level the street. Today, Machen still hopes he might one day open it to the public if he can secure government funding. For now, though, he's focused on closing up the entrance so he can finish repairing his walkway. Green trees in the desert. Late last year, an international team of NASA scientists and research organizations announced a stunning discovery. About 1.8 billion trees are scattered across arid and semi-arid regions of the world, places where hardly anyone expected much vegetation at all. Thanks to artificial intelligence, the researchers trained a deep learning algorithm to identify trees from high-resolution satellite imagery in a project surveying plant life outside traditional forests. That's how they found trees in places long overlooked in climate models or environmental forecasts. This surprising result was recorded over an area of more than 1.3 million square kilometers, including the Sahara Desert, the Sahel Transition Zone to the south, and surrounding grasslands. Without modern technology, this kind of survey could have taken months. The data collected is incredibly valuable for environmental science, as well as for shaping climate policies, restoration projects, and ecosystem conservation. Children's handprints. Over 100 mysterious handprints have been found on the walls of a cave in Mexico, all left by children more than 12,200 years ago. Scientists believe these handprints may have been part of an ancient coming-of-age ritual performed by the early Maya, marking the transition of children into adulthood. At least 137 handprints were found in black and red pigment. The cave holding these marks sits at the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula. Notably, according to archaeologist Sergio Groshon, black symbolizes death, but not that the children were to be sacrificed. Instead, black signified death in the context of ritual. Red may have symbolized war or life. The use of both colors suggests the ceremony was tied to the cycle of life passing from childhood to adulthood, from life to death. When the handprints were pressed onto the rock, the Maya civilization was at its height, excelling in art and agriculture. Curiously, these are the only surviving handprint initiation marks found in all of Maya territory, proof that this ancient society still holds countless mysteries yet to be revealed. The Wall of Frozen Fish. A photograph of fish frozen into a wall of ice over 1.2 meters high went viral in 2017 after the U.S. Department of the Interior posted it on Twitter. The image shows fish frozen in all directions, as if caught mid-swim. Photographer Kelly Preheim captured the moment in 2015 at Lake Andes National Wildlife Refuge in South Dakota at the end of a brutally cold winter. She explained that the fish died because the water ran out of oxygen after a prolonged drought. Thick ice blocked sunlight, preventing algae and underwater plants from growing and further depleting oxygen levels, leading to disaster for the fish. Many floated to the surface, decomposed, and then froze into the ice. As the ice thickened and extended toward shore, entire blocks of ice filled with fish were pushed up. As sad as it was, the sight of the dead fish brought bald eagles, gulls, and other animals back to a lake that had once been devastated by invasive fish. Thanks to the drought, the ecosystem had a chance to recover its natural balance. The Inca stone walls. The Sacsayhuaman stone complex in Peru is one of the most debated archaeological finds in the country. Built in pre-industrial times, it's regarded as a technical marvel of the ancient Inca. The largest stones ever used in Inca construction are found here, fitted so perfectly together that even today, you couldn't slide a piece of paper between them. This has led to many wild theories about alien technology, but in reality, the Incas were simply masters of engineering, expert at carving stone like an ancient game of Tetris. Sadly, after the Spanish conquest of Cusco, Sacsayhuaman was severely damaged not only by local residents, but also by the destruction of towers, ramparts, and much of the walls themselves. This has made studying the secret of Inca construction far more difficult. To this day, no one has truly explained their methods. The steppe bison. In 2011, members of the Yukagir tribe in northern Siberia found the nearly complete remains of a steppe bison, estimated to be 10,000 years old, and nicknamed the Yukagir bison. This specimen, a 4-year-old male, is the most intact steppe bison ever discovered. Its internal organs were preserved, allowing scientists to collect tissue samples. Since there was no fat under its skin, researchers believe the animal died of starvation. Another steppe bison was found decades ago near Fairbanks, Alaska. The Rungan family miners discovered the fossil in ice in 1979. Recognizing its importance, they contacted paleontologist Dale Guthrie at the University of Alaska, who led the excavation. Radiocarbon dating showed the animal died around 36,000 years ago, and its injuries suggested it was killed by another predator. The bison died in winter and froze quickly, protecting it from scavengers and preserving it until today. Erik Grönqvist, a master taxidermist at the University of Helsinki's Zoological Museum, helped preserve the specimen, which was named Blue Babe. During the process, scientists sampled its blood and bone marrow. In 1984, the specimen went on display at the University of Alaska Museum of the North. To celebrate, Guthrie's team even made a stew from the bison's neck meat. According to Guthrie, It tasted like ordinary beef, just chewier, and, surprisingly, no one got sick from eating meat that was 36,000 years old. The steppe bison is closely related to today's bison in North America and Northern Europe, having evolved around 1 million years ago at the dawn of the Ice Age. It had much larger horns than modern bison, though its body size was similar. The species went extinct about 8,000 years ago, at the beginning of the Holocene.
The treasure must be this
If you found these mysterious stories fascinating, please leave your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss our next discoveries. See you in the next video.